Let's talk a little bit about positive reinforcement training. And one of the foundations of that is the memory marker. And we'll use a lot of memory markers in this class. So I'd like you to be familiar with the term. And this is a brief overview. Trust me, you could study this topic for years. Positive reinforcement training has two basic foundations. We encourage behavior we want, and we ignore behavior we don't want, or we manage it, which means we manipulate the environment so that the behavior doesn't happen at all. And we'll talk a little bit about the behavior that we don't want later on in this class, but in general, we're going to be talking about encouraging the behavior that we do want. Punishment training, which fortunately is not used exclusively anymore, although it's definitely still out there, but it relies on punishing the dog when they do something wrong. For example, if I'm training my dog to walk on leash, I'm going to have a choke chain or maybe a prong collar on them. And when they pull, I'm going to yank on that, and it's going to cause a little bit of pain. So they're going to learn that when I pull, it hurts, and that will keep them close to me. It's effective, it's quick. From my point of view, it's not good for the relationship at all. And if you don't know what you're doing, you can ruin a dog very quickly using punishment training. Positive reinforcement training relies on rewarding the dog when he does something correctly. So we are going to focus on rewarding that dog when they're walking close to us, when they're keeping that leash loose. We're going to be rewarding at first with food treats and later with other things. But to be able to reward them, we have to set them up to succeed. And so we'll be talking a lot about setting them up for success. Don't go too fast. Keep it slow. And you're going to have to really plan what you're going to do and have crystal clear communication when the dog does do something right. So the first thing, do the planning, decide what you want. What does walking on leash nicely look like for you? Are they attached to your leg? Are they a foot away? Are they behind you? Is it okay if the leash is just loose? What do you want for that? And then you're going to give a cue. You're going to tell your dog what you want them to do. And the lesson on lure reward training talks a lot about how to cue behaviors. So now we've decided what we want, we've cued the behavior. How do we tell our dog when they're doing it right? And this is such a critical piece that unfortunately we forget a lot. We really tend to notice when they're doing something wrong, not when they're doing something right. It's another reason that punishment training can be easier is because we certainly notice it when the dog is pulling. We don't necessarily notice it when they're walking right by our side. So to tell the dog that they're doing what we want, you use a memory marker. And there's different types of memory markers. The original one, I believe it was one of the very first ones used, was a whistle. And it was used with dolphins being trained. The marker would be a whistle. Yes, you did it right. And then the reward would be a fish. So that's kind of where it started. Clickers are also very common. You've heard of clicker training. It's, in my mind, probably the elite way of training. I love clicker training, but I find with pet dog owners, they prefer a marker word. And a marker word could be yes, yep, right. Any of those, just a short, distinct word that you're very, very consistent with. If you have a deaf dog, you might give the thumbs up signal as your marker word. You might flash something as the marker word. So you're going to take that marker and mark the behavior the instant the dog does what you want to do. So I've decided I want my dog to walk by my side. And what I'm going to do is anytime the dog comes to my side, I'm going to say yes, and I'm going to give them a treat. And then they might wander off a little bit, not pulling, but just wander off a little bit. As soon as they get back, I'm going to say yes and give a treat. And that's going to let the dog know that the behavior I want is having them walk by the side. And every time you mark a behavior, you give a treat. That's the contract that you have. If you figure it out, I'm going to say the word and you're going to get a treat. we're obviously not going to be treating a dog, say, for a sit for the rest of their lives. This is a training tool. So while I'm training the behavior, I'm going to mark and reward it 100% of the time. Once the dog knows the behavior well, I'm going to start fading out those food treats, fade out the marker word. And there's quite a bit more about that later on in the class. In the beginning, I'd like you to mark and reward 100% of the time. And this is what our dog is thinking. That's what she wants. I figured it out. I get a treat. And notice the dog's enthusiasm about this. Dogs love this game, and they love trying to figure it out because it's such a positive thing. They get lots of treats. They're smart. They get to communicate with their person. They really do think of it as a game. And because it's a game, you're going to be amazed when your dog figures out this communication, and when you figure it out, because it is hard, your relationship automatically gets stronger. It's really cool. And I see it happen all the time with myself, even after 20 minutes of training a dog. When I introduce this marker word and they get used to it, they start looking at me like, hey, this person gets me. It's really cool. And this dog here loves to train. He's a trick dog, and he's just waiting to say, tell me what to do. And again, here's my dog, Beta, and we're at the farmer's market. It's a very distracting environment. And she's saying, what do you want? What do you want me to do? Come on, let's train. And I love that, especially for her, because she didn't necessarily always love training. So throughout this class, you're going to be hearing me talking about marker words. I'm going to show you how to introduce them and use them. And I highly recommend that you stick to it and use them, because you're going to be kind of in love with the results.